Welcome to me, where suspenseful, thrilling, and mysterious stories will draw you into a world where the lines between reality and fantasy seem to blur. When the night falls, when all the sounds gradually quiet down, leaving only your own heartbeat and breathing, that's when these stories begin. Tensions, unsolved mysteries, moments that will make you hold your breath in fear or curiosity, all are waiting for you ahead. Find a comfortable seat, dim the lights, and let this sound guide you on a journey that is not for the faint of heart. I want each of you to leave a comment sharing where you are in the world. And if you are enjoying the episodes, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel now. Relax. Are you ready? If so, join me in the first story right now. The Unnatural Diary. Part 1. The Unintended Discovery. Dust swirled in the dim light as Sarah pushed aside a stack of brittle newspapers, her fingers brushing against something unexpected. Soft, worn leather. She reached into the box of forgotten books and relics, pulling free an old, weathered diary. Its edges were frayed with time, the cover nearly stripped of its once proud embossing, now smooth and cool beneath her touch. A faint residue of salt clung to its surface, as if it had weathered years of quiet decay, or been touched by the sea itself. Intrigued, she carefully pried it open near the middle, where thick, textured pages crackled with age. The paper felt different, denser than usual, almost like parchment. The ink, though faded, carried an unusual shimmer, as if the words still pulsed with some lingering energy, revealing a chilling passage. I had to move quickly, but the floorboards betrayed me, groaning beneath my steps as I crept through the darkened hall. It was close. I could feel its snarling breath, cold and damp, seeping through the walls, making them feel thinner than they were. The air was thick with the weight of its presence. I had to make it to the kitchen. I had to get to the closest bag of consecrated salt before it was too late. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. The words read like a story, yet something about them felt strangely real and weren't meant to entertain, but to warn. She flipped another page, the dry parchment whispering as it moved, and something slipped loose. A note, a single yellowed slip of paper, fluttered to the attic floor. Sarah bent to retrieve it, her pulse quickening as she read the hastily scrawled words. If you've found this, it already knows. It already knows? The words sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. What does that mean? What already knows? Shaking off the unease, she set the diary aside, convincing herself it was just a very old diary. Nothing more. She returned to cleaning, determined to finish the task before indulging her curiosity. Later, with the attic finally organized, Sarah sank into the old desk chair she had recently dusted off and pulled from the corner. It paired well with an antique desk she had just cleaned off, a piece that had likely sat buried beneath clutter for years. Exhaustion giving way to curiosity, She reached for the diary, opening it to the first page, her fingers brushing over the worn pages, coming to the inside of the cover, where a passage so intimate, it felt as though she was intruding on something deeply personal, was scrawled in elegant handwriting. To my beautiful Colette, may the enchantment of these pages cradle your precious memories and bridge the distance between us, keeping our hearts forever intertwined with eternal love. Roderick Shadowthorn of Moonvale Hollow. Beneath the inscription, in a more delicate script, another line had been added, given to me by my love on Saturday, February 28th, 1953. Sarah's pulse quickened. The names, Roderick Shadowthorn, Moonvale Hollow, felt almost otherworldly, like something plucked from a forgotten fairy tale. Sarah turned to the first entry, March 2nd, 1953. My dearest new diary. I am excited to begin writing. I can scarcely believe my fortune. Has it only been weeks since I met Roderick? It feels as though I have known him forever, as though our souls recognized one another long before our eyes had ever met. He is unlike anyone I have ever known. His presence is both briskly confident and gentle, and his words laced with a wisdom as though he has seen lifetimes beyond my own, fascinates me. When I am with him, the world feels richer and brighter, as if I have stepped beyond the veil and into something wondrous. His world is unlike anything I could have imagined, mystical, brimming with enchantment and secrets woven through everything there. He speaks of things I cannot yet comprehend, yet I believe every word. When he takes my hand, I swear I can feel the pulse of something ancient and powerful. He calls himself a hermit, or rather, that's what others call him. But to me, he is nothing short of extraordinary. Everything about him is mesmerizing. His long, dark waves that frame his face, the depth of his warm brown eyes, and oh, the way he looks at me, as if I am the only thing that exists in his world. It sends my heart racing, my breath catching in my throat. I have never felt so seen, so cherished. If this is love, then let me remain lost in it forever. I do not know what the future holds, nor how we will balance our lives together. But I know I wish to be with Roderick forever, and I will follow wherever this enchantment leads. Forever hopeful, Colette. Wow. Sarah exhaled the word, unable to stop the tinge of jealousy creeping into her voice. To feel that in love, to be cherished like that. She had once known that feeling, back when she and Neil were still wrapped in the bliss of their early days. But those days had faded, worn thin by time and disappointment, until all that remained was silence and a divorce finalized 3 years ago. Now, her world revolved around work, the occasional night out with friends, and a growing reluctance to to let anyone get too close again. She shook off the thought and turned the page, only to feel as though something else was guiding her hand. The diary fell open to a blank page, yet at the top, written in the same elegant script, a date had already been inscribed. March 15th, 2025. Sarah's breath hitched. Her pulse pounded in her ears. That's today's date. She stumbled back, nearly losing her balance. Her mind raced for an explanation, but none made sense. The diary was old, decades old. How could this be? A chill swept through the attic, and she rubbed her arms, trying to shake the unease pressing against her chest. It's just a coincidence, a weird, creepy coincidence. Forcing a nervous laugh, she muttered, "Okay, that's enough reading for today. I just need a shower, food, and..." Before she could finish, a brilliant light erupted from the diary, flooding the attic in a blinding radiance. The air crackled, thick with an energy she could feel rushing over her skin. A high-pitched hum filled her ears as the pages of the diary flared open, their edges glowing with an unnatural heat. Sarah barely had time to scream before the light consumed her. Then, silence. The attic stood empty. The diary lay undisturbed on the desk. A new entry had appeared on the once blank page. March 15th, 2025. I could sense a release. The connection to her world is back. It seems different somehow. Oh, how I can't wait to see her again. What is this? She? She opened it? Who is she? She has dared to open Colette's diary. She will answer for this. She will. The sentence trailed off, the ink still wet, as if waiting to be finished. Part 2. The vanished sister. As the last of the evening sun faded into a moonless sky, Gloria settled in beside her husband, the familiar hum of their favorite television show filling the room. The night was calm, uneventful, until the phone shattered the quiet with a sharp trill. Gloria glanced at the caller ID. A slight frown creased her brow. Miranda? Sarah's friend? Why would she be calling? Perplexed, she rose from the couch, murmuring to her husband, "I'll be right back." Pressing the phone to her ear, she answered hesitantly. "Hello? Miranda? Hey, Gloria. I'm sorry for calling so late." Miranda's voice wavered, the hesitation in her tone setting Gloria instantly on edge. "I got your number from Sarah's records and..." Gloria's throat tightened. Sarah's records? We were wondering if everything was okay with her. She hasn't been to work in about a week, and we're starting to get worried. We've tried calling, leaving messages, but she hasn't answered. This isn't like her at all. And Miranda hesitated before continuing, her voice barely above a whisper. She missed an important deadline for a major project on Wednesday. Gloria gripped the phone tighter. Sarah? Missing work? Ignoring calls? Failing to meet a deadline? The words barely registered as the realization slowly settled into fear. She hadn't spoken to her sister in nearly 2 weeks. That wasn't unusual for them. Life had a way of pulling them in different directions, but Sarah not showing up for work and no word to anyone, that was impossible. That was not Sarah, and suddenly, the quiet night didn't feel so peaceful anymore. The familiar rhythm of her world began to close in. Where is my sister? By the time the police got involved, Gloria had already exhausted every possible explanation. Even Sarah's ex-husband Neil had flown into town, trying to find out what he could from their mutual acquaintances and his family in the area. But the more they searched, the deeper the mystery became. There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, no evidence of foul play. Sarah's car remained parked in the driveway. Her purse sat neatly on the dining table, car keys beside it. The house, meticulously arranged, just as she always kept it. Security footage only deepened the mystery. The last recording showed Sarah arriving home from work last Friday, locking the door behind her, and then nothing. No one entered. No one left, leaving the house feeling eerily undisturbed, as if she had vanished without a trace. Her co-workers, Amalia and Miranda, had been the first to raise the alarm. They knew their friend would not miss work, especially not a major deadline, not without calling, not without an explanation. This was an impossibility for someone as methodical and precise as Sarah. So where had she gone? Then there was the opened diary in the attic, sitting on the antique desk in the attic. Its cracked leather cover bore the weight of years. It wasn't Sarah's. Gloria knew that much. The pages, thick and time-worn, had been left open as if abandoned in haste. And there, scrawled in elegant yet unsettling handwriting, was a date, March 15th, 2025, last Saturday, the day after Sarah was last seen. The police had skimmed through the diary, dismissing it as nothing more than an old journal Sarah had stumbled upon. Perhaps she had been reading it, maybe even planning to write something inspired by it. After all, she had only moved into the house last October. The previous owner, a woman in her 90s, had passed away the year before, and her children had taken what little they wanted. Antiques, heirlooms, family photographs. The rest had been left behind in their rush to sell the house. But as Gloria sat at the old antique desk staring at the diary, unease slithered through her. She reached for it hesitantly, fingers grazing the worn leather cover. A whisper of movement stirred the air, though the room was still. The moment she picked up the book, a chill pricked deep in her bones. Something told her that Sarah hadn't just disappeared. She had been taken. Part 3, the final entry. Taking a steadying breath, Gloria flipped through the pages, only to have them land on the last recorded entry again. March 15th, 2025. I could sense a release. The connection to her world is back. It seems different somehow. Oh, how I can't wait to see her again. What is this? She opened it? Who is she? She has dared to open Colette's diary. She will answer for this. She will... The ink shimmered in shifting, iridescent hues of black and blue, as if the words were still being formed, not yet complete. A low hum vibrated through the attic, the air thickening with something unnatural. Gloria clenched her jaw. An aching sense of dread settled in her chest. This wasn't just a diary. This was something else. Something supernatural. Sarah, what did you do? With a deep breath, she turned the page. And Gaba, March 20th, 2025. She keeps running again. I'll find her again. She will tell me where Colette is. She does not belong. She is not Colette. She fights, but she cannot escape. She will stay. If I cannot have my Colette, I found her again. She hides. These people cannot protect her from me. She is strong, but endurance lasts only so long. Gloria's stomach twisted. Sarah was alive, but she wasn't just missing. She was trapped. Somewhere beyond this world, desperation clawed at her chest. There had to be something, some way to help Sarah. Flipping frantically through the brittle pages, she stopped when she found an entry dated April 10th, 1956. The ink was uneven, smudged in places, as though written in haste. April 10th, 1956. I have kept it at bay with consecrated salt. I believe I have found a way to seal this diary. It was forged by Roderick's own hands, a doorway between both worlds. It seems impossible to destroy, but I must protect my husband, my children. The salt has bound the door. He cannot come through that way again. I did love him once, but what he was becoming, now he is lost to rage and darkness. No longer the man I loved. He is something else now. A vile creature. I pray no one ever finds this diary. I have been told, soak cloth in sea salt. Wrap the diary within it. The realms will be severed. If this works, this will be my last entry. If it doesn't, God help me. The smudged words ended abruptly. Gloria's hands trembled as she closed the diary. She knew what she had to do. Colette had sealed the diary once before. Gloria would do it again. Gloria searched the attic, her hands trembling, looking for any salt that may have been left. Thankfully, Sarah had cleaned and organized the space not too long ago, making it easier to find what she needed. But would it work? Would it not only seal the diary, but also bring Sarah back? Her fingers brushed against something cool and metallic. An old tin can with the words "Consecrated Salt" embossed on its worn surface. Inside, a thick, heavy bag of salt remained untouched. Waiting, anxious, Gloria quickly opened the diary to the most recent entry. Her heart pounded as she poured a thick line of salt down the center of the open pages, then traced a protective circle around it. She didn't know what she was doing, but she had to do something. It had already been a week since Sarah disappeared. The air shifted. A strange, oppressive stillness pressed down on the attic. Then, The diary lifted off the desk. A plume of smoke curled from its pages as an eerie glow pulsed from within. The pages flared open, flipping wildly as a gust of wind erupted through the attic. Bolts of crackling light shot from the diary, slamming into the wooden beams and shaking the very foundation of the house. Gloria stumbled back, shielding her face as the attic groaned, the walls pulsating as if the house itself were alive. Then, a scream, low and guttural, full of rage and loss, a scream that was not human. And just as suddenly as it began, everything stilled. The diary dropped to the floor with a final thud, its edges slightly singed. The attic fell silent, the air refreshed into somewhat normalcy. Gloria hesitated before stepping forward. The diary lay motionless, its pages now eerily still. A single final entry had appeared. March 21st, 2025. She is gone. My Colette has left me. I am nothing without her. Oh, Colette. I am so sorry. I loved you so. I waited. You never came. I am no more, finally, released from my agony. Then, without warning, the diary slammed shut. Gloria's breath caught. Where is Sarah? Please, give me my sister back, she cried, voice breaking. A soft thud echoed from downstairs. Heart pounding, Gloria bolted down the steps, and there, lying in the center of the living room, was Sarah. Dazed, shaken, a little battered, but very much alive. Sarah blinked at her, disoriented. Gloria? Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. You're here. What happened? Tears blurred Gloria's vision as she rushed forward, pulling her sister into a fierce hug. Oh, Sarah, you're home. Sarah shuddered against her. I saw him. Roderick. He was a monster, Gloria, twisted by rage. He was searching for Colette, furious that she had betrayed him, that she had moved on, married someone else. Gloria cupped Sarah's face, her thumbs brushing against her cheeks, wiping the tears. You're safe now. It's over. Sarah's gaze flickered toward the attic door. Her voice was quieter now, wary. Is it? Gloria took a slow breath. I think he finally found peace. After all these years, he was released from his pain. Sarah nodded, but unease lingered in her expression. Then let's make sure no one ever opens that diary again, Gloria agreed. And without hesitation, they climbed back up to the attic, grabbing the diary. Then, under the moon's watchful glow, they carried it out back, straight to the fire pit. As the flames consumed the aged leather and time-worn pages, an unnatural wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the last echoes of Roderick Shadowthorn of Moonvale Hollow. And for the first time in 70 years, Moonvale Hollow would be forgotten forever, or so they hoped. Seeking fair lady. No matter how much she fussed with her blonde locks, Lady Charity Farnsworth cast a blue, deviled countenance before her boudoir mirror. so could not achieve a desirable outcome. She finally relinquished the brush, tossing it to the makeup-strewn vanity as she thought to herself, "Whatever am I to do? My father has forbidden me to ever entertain my beau, Sir Riley, in any genteel ton company henceforth. He doesn't understand the depths of our love for one another. What is the point of attending yet another tea or ball in pretense of making a match, when in my heart of hearts the perfect match already exists? There is none other I would ever want to be yoked to. Why can't Father forgive our innocent indiscretions in the garden and offer Sir Fenwick another opportunity to win his graces? So what if he saw us kissing? Giving up, she flung her arms out wide, then buried her face in her hands as she sobbed. Presently, a cautious knock sounded at the door. "Oh, Charity, dear," came the voice of her father. "Let me in to see how you look. You'll be meeting some exciting, eligible bachelors tonight. You must be ready. It is time to be going." "Oh, one moment, please. Be right there." She slipped a silky robe over her shift and opened the door. "Charity, where is your maid? You are not near ready to go, and your face is a disgrace. Whatever is wrong with you?" She couldn't help herself. She encircled his neck with her forearms and cried on the shoulder of his wool spencer, smearing it with rouge. "Please, Father, I have no desire to meet any other man. I only yearn for my true love." "Do you mean that insufferable rogue, Fenwick? He treated you like an adventuress. No respect for you or myself. I will not be bamboozled by the likes of him. You deserve a man of honor, the kind that will be at the gala tonight. Now get into your gown. As long as you are under my roof, you'll abide by my rules. I'll pick out a suitable mate for you, one that will be an advantageous coupling. End of discussion." He disentangled himself from her and slammed the door shut on his way out. 1 second later, the door opened again as he stuck his head in. "Don't bother getting dressed now. We would be late. I'll simply bring home some lucky fellow with me. You'll meet him when I get back, and we will have a ceremony this weekend to make you his wife. That'll put an end to your nonsense." Once he left, Charity wailed louder than ever. "No, no, no. He can't do this to me." She collapsed on the bed in tears. Meanwhile, out in the garden, Sir Riley crouched behind a leafy rhododendron, watching for the carriage to leave. It surprised him to see Lord Farnsworth was alone. That meant chances were good that Charity would be alone inside as well. He had ridden along with his partner, Sir Carlton Winslow, when he came to escort Dowager Countess Diana Honeyfield, Charity's aunt, out to dinner. His hope had been to follow Charity and her father to whatever event they had planned for the evening. and try to win an audience with the Lord, to apologize for his behavior at their last meeting. This turn of events was even better. Dare he approach his fair maiden to pick up where they left off? He had gained great strides in having his way with the lass before her father had discovered their secret rendezvous in the dark garden and forbade them to see each other ever again. It was a risky plan, but with aplomb, perhaps fortune would smile on them, and her father could never deny them, given the right circumstance. His heart was pounding. If he could just get inside and convince the fair maiden to let him come inside also. His hands sweated as he hoisted himself up the giant oak that spread branches out toward what he was sure was her dressing room window. Twigs snapped and leaves rustled. Hopefully, no servants were close enough to hear his clumsy ascent. When in position, he could peer through the gauzy curtains and see her sprawled on the bed, wearing little other than a flimsy robe. His excitement heightened. He threw twigs to ping on the glass and cautiously called out her name. What? What was that noise? I miss Riley so much. It is as if I can hear him calling to me. She stretched up from the mattress, allowing the robe to fall away, exposing more tender flesh. Then she realized where the noise was coming from and ran to the window. She couldn't get it opened fast enough when she saw her love clinging to the branches. Soon he was within her grasp, and they clung to each other. Mouths searched and found one another. Fingers fumbled at clothing till it fell away. Palms grabbed and caressed and repeated and explored uncharted territory. He picked up her trembling body and carried it to the bed, gently placing it as he wordlessly asked permission to envelope her. She willingly granted access and likewise enveloped all of him. They brought each other to tottering heights, crashing deliciously down, and climbed again and again, becoming one with each other. Let no man put asunder, losing all sense of time and space. They belonged to each other. They were in total bliss until Charity. It is your father. I have someone you need to meet. He will soon be your husband. I am giving him your hand in marriage. Come out at once. Charity wilted in Riley's arms. You mustn't be caught in here. He'll kill you. Then he'll kill me, slowly. I know the kind of man he would choose for me. Nothing like you. Climb out, please, she whispered. I'll not give you to another man. I'll face those barking irons if I must. But you belong fully to me now. We've been caught red-handed, but we've done nothing wrong. No apologies anymore. I'll make you an honest woman. We'll visit the Amen curler tomorrow. We love each other. Your father has to see that now. No swell will have you after tonight. I'm not sorry." He kissed her quickly and slid out the window just as her father opened the door on her nakedness beneath the sheets. 1600, November 28, 2024. Subterfuge. Suitors precariously climbing trees and pressing their suit. Ripped bodices. Hot kisses. Near discovery. I nearly swooned. What more could possibly befall our hero and heroine? Be still, my heart, and wait impatiently for the next installment of All's Fair. 1640, November 28, 2024. So glad you approve. Thought about changing ending to where she climbs out with him and they disappear too? Haven't entered it, so think it is okay to change. Happy Thanksgiving. Reply. Edit. Delete. Upvote. Downvote. 1 point. Trudy Jass. 1656. November 28, 2024. Happy Thanksgiving to you. You could have her slip out before she meets what's his name, or in the day or two before the wedding. Auntie could have a little tea party for her, and off the Jersey or Gretna Green they go. Reply. Report. Upvote. Downvote. 1 point. Mary Bendixson, 2055. November 28, 2024. Right on. Reply. Edit. Delete. 36. November 28, 2024. Your story has a lot going for it. It's dramatic, emotional, and packed with tension, all of which make for an engaging Regency romance. Charity's despair and her father's overbearing nature are written in a way that makes the stakes feel real. It's clear how much is on the line for her, and that emotional pull keeps the reader invested. I love how you've woven in Regency-era details like Spencer, Ton, and Almond Curler. Those touches make the world feel authentic as without being overwhelming. Charity and Riley's relationship feels passio. Reply. Report. 1644. November 28, 2024. So appreciative of your comments. Was considering changing the ending to her climbing out with him to the unknown. What do you think? Happy Thanksgiving. Reply. Edit. Delete. Upvote. Downvote. 1 point. Rebecca Lewis, 1808. November 29, 2024. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. I think having Charity climb out with Riley could be a powerful ending. It adds an extra layer of defiance and agency to her character. It would show she's willing to take control of her own fate instead of being trapped by her father's demands. Plus, it leaves the story on a romantic and adventurous note, with the two of them facing an uncertain future together. That kind of ending would feel satisfying and true to the passion you've established between them. If you decide to go that route, you might want reply. Report. Thanks again. I wrote another too cute episode last night that sort of fits one of this week's prompts. After reading the new prompts, I think I will pull the fair story and match it with a new prompt. Even though it has several likes, which I will lose, I didn't enter it into contest, so it should be okay to do. Have more family events today, but hope to get this done. Reply, edit, delete, upvote, downvote, 1 point. Leslie Mamala, 1105, Nov 28, 2024. Well done. I am ready to hear what happens next. Reply, report, upvote, downvote, 1 point. Mary Bendixson, 1653, Nov 28, 2024. Glad you liked it, and thanks for the follow. Have you read the previous episodes, all with fair in them, that lead up to this fiasco? We'll get back to your work after today. Happy Thanksgiving. Reply, edit, delete, 2020, Nov 28, 2024. Not yet, but I will. Happy Thanksgiving. Reply, report, upvote, downvote, 1 point. Thomas Wetzel, so 749, Nov 28, 2024. Your writing is so sophisticated, I can barely understand half of it. I just know it's awesome. You are so good. I'm gonna go watch every episode of Downton Abbey, and then come back to reread this and see if I can actually appreciate it like an intelligent adult. Happy Turkey Day. Reply, report, 1649, Novi 28, 2024. Gobble, gobble to you too. I don't know about sophisticated. I am only winging it on this ton stream, but glad you like it. Reply, edit, delete, upvote, downvote, 1 point. Lady Coretta, Stephenberg, 0502, Nov 28, 2024. Always a good read. Reply, report, Joe 533, Nov 28, 2024. Thank you. Reply, edit, delete, upvote, downvote, 1 point. Alexis Araneta, 1748, Nov 27, 2024. An adorable continuation of your series. Lovely work. Reply, report, 1931, Novi 27, 2024. Thank you. Do you think of this as the finale, or does it go on? Reply, edit, delete, clay pigeons. It was 3 days since you last called. No, I should clarify, since you answered. Since you answered your damn phone and stopped breaking protocol. And it's not like you didn't know the rules. You needed to check in once every day. Not every 24 hours. Every day. Thursday before midnight, and then Friday, just as the day turned, counted as 2 check-ins. Yet you never stretched it like that. Always called at noon sharp. Another day where you were human and in vicinity of your landline. Mark had been huffing and puffing since day 2. But I assured him this wasn't like you, that something big and horrible and terrible must have happened. Maybe you were laying prone on the floor of your living room, and I was sheltered here, wondering why you weren't calling, while I should have been the one calling for help. By day 3, I was spiraling. You were caught in a trap. You were dismembered and possibly disemboweled. You had lost all sanity and feeling. Mark warned me that 24 hours more and we would need to call in control. I snapped and informed him I was perfectly aware of that, as well as I was perfectly aware of what control would do to you. I pleaded with him to give me your address. It was against every rule in the book, but I was sure he would understand. After all, you had been so diligent with it all. We never had to ask you for anything. You always did your check-ins and checkups by yourself. The phone kept ringing. By day 4, he relented. The first thing I noticed was the curtains. They were green and closed shut. A flyer was on your porch, flapping furiously in the wind. Its pages turned, advertising deals in meat and shampoo. Your house was straw, with flaying blue paint and a wrap-around porch. You had plants, and their leaves were dropping in thirst. I knocked on your door twice. You had one of these old-looking knockers, leaving the smell of iron lingering in my fingernails. I don't know what I expected. A hovel, perhaps, or a burrow hole, but everything looked very human to me. Or maybe it was all an act, and you were living in the garden hut. I circled the house, looking for any signs of life, and found none. Wind chimes were swaying softly in the distance, filling the air with a clicking sound. It sounded like a clock counting down. I knew I shouldn't, and under any other circumstances, I wouldn't. But I pressed my nose to your windows, one by one, hoping for any movement or sound from within. I found myself scanning the air for the smell of your dead body. But then I stopped. Maybe I was giving you too much credit. Maybe it was all an act. And you were all the way to the border by now. Mark had given me the security key. All agency-approved houses had one, even though you never knew. It must have been horrible to know that someone could enter your house at any time. Or at least, that was what Mark had said when I asked him, and then chose not to ask anything more. The door creaked, letting in an arc of sunlight. The first thing I noticed was the mirror on the floor, shards spreading in almost a perfect diameter. The second thing I noticed was the pigeon. It flapped furiously around the couch, leaving talon marks on the fabric. The couch matched the curtains, was the first thought I had. The second one was that it was you. Veronica? I asked, and my voice trembled, because this didn't make sense. And then the pigeon talked, and it was you. Amelia! And the pigeon couldn't cry, but I swear I heard its voice break. Amelia, I can't turn back. I closed the door behind me and reached for the light switch. What do you mean you can't turn back? I can't turn back, you echoed, and flew to the mirror. Your image multiplied in each shard until 3, 4. A flock of pigeons were staring back at me. I don't know why. You paused for a second and hoped from one tiny foot to the other. I can't remember how I look like anymore. Veronica, this is nonsense, I said, because I had to stick to protocol. It was our only chance to avoid control, after all. Have you tried your memory exercises? You have been so diligent with them. The pigeon huffed. You think I don't know that? And something about it startled me to my core. There was this animal, barely reaching up to my ankle. Yet, it was you, the 40-something woman to survive the shifting experiments, turning from a mole to a lion in the blink of an eye, and then back to human again. You had survived the monitors and the testing and the labs, only to be stuck as a pigeon. This was ridiculous. I got to my knees because, frankly, it was embarrassing to have to look down to see you. Veronica, control will be here in less than 6 hours. We need to prove them you are lucid. And most of all, human. Maybe it was because you were less than a foot tall, but your voice was very small all of a sudden. I am perfectly lucid, Amelia. As for human, there was a sound that might have been a laugh. I simply don't know how to be that anymore. Don't say that, I gasped. At least don't say that out loud. There was a long silence. And then, can I trust you? I almost laughed. You could turn into a bear if you wanted. Tear me in half. I broke into your house. I have been monitoring you every single day for the past 5 years. I was trying to beat control in its own game. The wind chime kept ringing. I can help you if you want. I all but ignored your question. I had been nothing but a surveillance camera to you for half a decade. But you have to promise me that you will turn back. Help me how? I can call the agency for you. You can do the speaking. I paused for a second. This is the reason you haven't called, right? Because you don't have, limbs? You can't pick up the phone? I sounded irrational, even to my own ears. Of course, the pigeon couldn't pick up the damn landline. It had no hands. You would do that? I would. But only if you promise to turn back by nightfall. Your voice cracked. I don't know if I can promise that. I don't know how to do that. I don't remember my own face. Nonsense, I called again. I will help you remember your face just fine. And I picked up the landline. Mark was confused, but relieved. Remarked how I had worried for nothing. And maybe I hadn't reached you yet. But as soon as you show me, you had to tell me to turn back and stop being such a fool. That everything was okay. And you were fine. And everything was fine. And nothing would go wrong ever again. He sounded like a preacher, promising heaven to killers. In short, a whole load of bullshit. When he finally hung up, you flew up to the curtain rod. "Why would you do that?" you asked. And it was a brilliant question, because I hadn't the slightest idea myself. You know what control would do to you otherwise? My voice was small. I had to look up to you now. You huffed. "The collar. I know. Everyone knew. It was a terrible, horrible thing, blocking any shifting until deemed appropriate again. Stuck as a human forever. Surely not such a terrible fate, as I had been stuck as a human from the moment I was born, and would likely remain one forever. Yet, why be a human forever, when you could be a different beast every hour? Yet, why be human at all? A small voice always echoed in the back of my mind. But once again, I pushed it down. Envy was one thing. Self-hatred was another. "Now, let's find your face." I clapped my hands, sounding like a school teacher. This encounter had to take a pleasant turn somehow, even if I had to grab it by the reins to do so. I had never seen your face myself. To me, you were just Veronica, a first name on a paper, and occasionally a voice in my ear. You were also a string of numbers and letters, a barcode detailing you as one of the few survivors. But you didn't need to know that. Do you have any family photos? Phone backgrounds? My voice trailed in the quiet of the house. "He hit me." It all went still. "Excuse me? He hit me?" Your voice is steadier now. "He hit me, and I needed a way out. I figured I could fly, but then he shot me. And this is when I notice that every feather on the floor is laced with your blood. And the smell I had been ignoring is there. It is tangy and metallic." You laugh. It is a desperate sound, coming out more like a croak. I had never heard an animal make a sound like that. Yet here you are. I guess you could say I asked for it, turned myself into a clay pigeon, a perfect target for him to shoot at. "Nonsense," I snap. "Don't talk like that about yourself." You keep talking, as if I had never interrupted. It was as if a slate had been wiped clean. I had been diligent with everything. I had been walking around the minefield, tiptoeing mostly, with the agency, with the calls, with him. He wouldn't let me shift. Said it was unnatural, that it was better if I embraced my true self, which, of course, was me being human. A croak escapes your beak again. I hadn't shifted in 5 years. This is my first time flying since I met you. And do you know what is the funny thing? I had been human for so long, yet I don't remember my own face. I was just his extension, I think. Your feathers are puffed, and you reach down, nibbling on a feather on your chest. And the worst thing is, I am afraid. I am afraid to try to shift back again. Because then, what happens with the gunshot? You are speaking as if I am not there. As if you are addressing an audience of thousands, giving a pragmatic lecture on anatomy. Your voice is devoid of feeling, and I have an overbearing need to reach out to you. What if it pokes open a hole on my chest? What if it cuts off an artery in my leg, and then I need to amputate it? My voice is gentle for once. Let me see. I didn't think you would. Yet you fly down and land on my arm. I draw in a sharp breath. I had always dreamed of a bird landing on me like that, ever since watching it in old animated movies. Your feathers are stained red, and when I reach for your right foot, you tremble. It's okay, I whisper. And because you are a pigeon, I reach and stroke the feathers on the top of your head. It's okay, I repeat, mostly to myself, because while I have studied animal medicine, I am surely not a human doctor. You might be lucky. It looks like nothing but a scary flesh wound. But you are right. I have no idea what this means for your human body. What is your favorite color? I ask, and you angle your head to the side. Orange, I guess. Although I never gave it much thought. You are light as a feather. Why orange? I love the sunrise. All is dark. And then there is orange. And then there is a new day. That's a lovely answer, I say, because I need to tether you back to yourself. What do you remember of your mother's eyes? And then I curse myself because you grew up in the academy. What would you know of your mother's eyes? Yet, despite everything, you answer. They were brown, I think. I talk you through your memories and your dreams. We recall your training and exercises, your memory drills and protocol compliances, who you were before and who will you be after. Animal and human anatomy, femurs and phalanxes, muscles and arteries, and how your brain expands, and how your heart beats. We spend all night talking. How you are a human, but you don't have to be one. How you want to be one. How it is worth taking the risk. And then there is a flash, and you are on the floor, dried blood on your side. One last thing. The room was dim, filled with the soft beep of machines and the sterile smell of antiseptic. The air, thick with the weight of illness, seemed to hold its breath, as if the world itself knew that something important was about to happen. Outside the bedroom, the sun had begun to set, casting shadows across the walls. Little did I know that this would be our last conversation. I sat at the edge of my sister's bed, watching her sickly form. My once strong sibling was now bedridden. She was barely recognizable under the thin hospital sheets. The The illness had taken all of the color from her face. The pain had made her quiet. Her usual loud laughter was now replaced by a smile that barely reached her eyes. It had been months since the doctors had said there was nothing more to be done, but I'd clung to the hope that she would get better. Hope, I had come to realize, was a luxury we couldn't afford anymore. I saw my sister every day after work. I would talk to her about everything that happened at work and some family gossip. I shared some jokes with her, even though I knew she wouldn't or couldn't respond. The hospice nurse said to expect her transition any day, but honestly, I didn't. I just wanted my oldest sister back. But nothing surprised me more than what she said to me one afternoon. She turned her head towards me and opened her eyes. She grabbed my hand as she tried to get the words out. "Claire," she said, her voice cracking. "There's something that I need to get out before I die." I leaned closer, trying to ignore the pang of anxiety that tightened my chest. "What is it, Jean? You can tell me anything." She squeezed my hand, her grip surprisingly firm for someone so weak. Her eyes held a gleam of urgency that I hadn't seen in a long time. "I got to get this off my chest. It's bad, very bad. You will think that it's something terrible, something unforgivable." I stared at her, not sure how to respond. The words felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. I had always known my sister went through something dramatic when I was away at college. Our parents and grandparents never told me what it was because they wanted me to focus on school. Every time I came home on a break, her and my parents would have this unspoken conversation, and I would feel left out. By the time I graduated, it no longer bothered me. But now, she's deciding to tell this secret on her deathbed. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "What have you done?" She closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts, and when she opened them again, there was a deep sadness in her gaze. "It's about our stepfather. I never told you the truth about him, but I have to now. You deserve to know." My heart skipped a beat at the mention of my stepfather. He had been gone for years, disappeared when I was in junior high. I had never fully understood why he'd left or what had wholly happened. My mother had always been vague on the subject, speaking of him only in passing, and whenever I pressed for details, she would change the subject or tell me it wasn't important. But now, my sister is getting ready to tell me what happened to him and why everyone stopped talking about him. And it was big. I leaned in, my voice trembling as I asked, "What did you do?" Her eyes darkened, the weight of her words almost too much to bear. "I was into some things that Mom didn't like. One night, Iz got high with my boyfriend. We were at the park smoking in his car. Mom was upset that I missed curfew. She sent our stepdad to look for me, When he caught up with us, we were naked in the car. He was so made that he broke the window with his fists. My boyfriend and him got into a fight. He kept hitting Lance even after he stopped moving. So I took the flashlight out the back seat and hit our stepdad on the back of his head. But the thing is that I didn't stop until I saw blood dripping from his head. It was almost like I was having an out-of-body experience. My boyfriend woke up and saw the mess. He wanted to hide the body, and I helped him. I helped him cover it up, and I'm not proud of it. I thought I could escape it, that I could bury it, but it's always been there, eating away at me. Now I can't take it with me, my stomach twisted into knots. You're telling me that you and Lance murdered our stepdad? She hesitated. Yes. Then we drove to the bridge and dumped his body in the river. The words hit me like a physical blow. In the river, I repeated. Her face crumpled. Yes. And when I got home, I told Mom that he saw me naked and tried to kiss me. She was beside herself, crying for days. Grandma came over to comfort her, while Grandpa packed up all his things. His body was found weeks later, and there were no suspects. I really tried to forget. I told myself it was just an accident. It wasn't my fault, and that I had no choice. But I did, Claire. I had a choice. I could have done things differently. I could have gone to the police. But I didn't. I sat back, feeling as if the floor had dropped out from under me. A cold numbness spread through my veins. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to spin. The stepfather I had spent my whole life wondering about was killed by my sister. But why are you telling me this now? I managed to ask, my voice hoarse with emotion. Why after all this time? You could have kept this secret forever. Her grip on my hand tightened. Because I can't take it with me. I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't want you to carry this burden. You need to know the truth so you can decide what to do with it. So you can make your own choices. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. The weight of her confession pressed down on me. My sister had kept this secret for decades, burying it deep inside her. And now, with her life nearing its end, she was leaving me with it. A secret too big, too dangerous to keep. A secret that could destroy everything I thought I knew about my family. The machines in the room beeped in time with her slow, labored breaths. I watched her. This woman, who had once been my best friend, now reduced to a shell of the person she had been. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't just deciding whether to reveal a secret. I was deciding what kind of person I wanted to be. In the end, I didn't know if I would ever be able to reveal the truth to the world. But for now, the secret is staying with me. The psychiatrist. I closed my eyes, ignoring the loud courtroom around me. Smacking of a woman in the back's gum chewing, fast typing of computer, closing and opening of doors in the back of the already full room. Clicking of photos being taken, yelling of lawyers arguing, banging of Judge Lewis's gavel hitting the hollow wooden desk. How did I get there? How did one misstep cause me to be the one standing there awaiting death or life imprisonment? No matter what I chose, it was the end for me. So couldn't I have given up instead of going down screaming? No, I couldn't have. Because that wasn't me. I heard the judge's raspy voice echo across the small courtroom. "Silence," he hollered. The whole room followed his instructions and went dead silent. "Miss Davis, I will ask once more." The judge sighed in a strained but steady voice. "How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty?" His voice faded slowly, like he was on edge. I paused, still holding my eyes securely shut. His strained, groggy voice gave me the feeling he was tired, angry, annoyed, and possibly sad. The way his jaw moved very gently and seemed clenched, even when he spoke, was a curious realization. Though when he did speak, normally, his voice was slow and dull, which was pretty normal for someone his age. But still, I knew something was wrong. He had a small wedding band on his right hand that was slightly rusted around the edges. Married for 30 years at least. He had bruises covered by a tattoo on the back of his same hand, which I noticed immediately after. It was new, practically 3 days old. Gone, but never forgotten. It read next to a small signature. I thought back more to the tattoo. JLJ, the signature read. Was it short for John Lewis Jr., the judge's son? The judge was grieving, not tired. He seemed so gloomy. I leaned my back against my chair, only to feel a soft vibration. So I listened. A uniformed officer behind me was tapping her foot on the floor quickly. Not normally, though. It was like she had somewhere to be. Nevertheless, it wasn't enough information to know for sure. Officer Howard had walked me in there, so I must have seen more. I remembered the way she walked, with a small limp on her left side. And when I asked her what courtroom we were going to, she responded angrily, like she was frustrated with a simple question. During the entire opening remarks, I kept hearing her heartbeat in the silence, and it was beating fast. But why was that? Was she nervous? Perhaps anxiety? No, that wouldn't explain the limp. That's it, I thought. Pain meds. She was taking them for her knee, but they were causing an addiction. She needed to see a doctor to get more, and that is why she was checking her watch so often. I took a deep breath to try and refocus on the judge's question, but I couldn't. I took a big whiff of my lawyer, Maxwell Hartley's cologne. It was strong, to say it best, but why was that? Other days, he'd come in with no smell, so why was today different? I pictured his frame leaning against the door in the hallway during our recess. He was a tall guy, 6'4", and his energy followed that. Every day, he came into work with a kind smile and a good morning for everyone. But he hadn't in a few weeks. He wasn't bad looking either, with his short, dark brown hair and even darker brown eyes. But alas, he wore a wedding ring when we first met. That was until a month ago when I noticed it off, and he never mentioned anything. I remembered back to the morning when he left abruptly at 10 o'clock on the dot and returned at exactly 10:15. Later, at around 1 o'clock, he did the same and came back at 1:15 again. Coincidence? No, nothing in our world is. So, what could he be doing that took 15 minutes? Immediately, a conversation I had with my therapist friend came up where she mentioned 15 minutes on the phone talking about common interests is an exercise for troubled couples. This means that Hartley was having marital problems. The judge coughed, and I jumped. I regained focus and slowly opened my sore eyes to adjust to the light. Shouldn't have I just ended this? Stopped at all the suffering I caused everyone, and just admitted to it. They all have places to be. So why couldn't I just say, yeah, I did it? 4 stupidly simple words I couldn't get out of my mouth. Why didn't I think I did anything? I did. I killed so many people. I can admit it now, but what was wrong with me then? I'm a psychiatrist. I should be able to tell what is wrong with people with the slightest movement. But in this case, I can't, and I don't know why. The entire trial, I had no feeling in me. It's like I was turning into someone else. I felt no remorse for killing 17 people. And yeah, sure it was out of my hands. But I still was caught red-handed prescribing medication people never even needed just to make a profit. I just don't understand it all. I have studied the brains, body languages, and emotions of thousands of people for most of my life. Yet somehow, I can't find out why or what happened to me. I was a good person before all of this. I had friends, an amazing career, a life, and a family. So how could one bad decision make me want to drive that all away? The answer, you may be wondering, I will never be able to give. I shot out of my chair, fiercely. Not guilty, Your Honor. The whole courtroom gasped out loud. I plead not guilty. Fear. Switch. My eyes were wide open now, pupils dilated, and blood freezing in my veins. I felt like my heart was going to jump out of my chest to get away from it all, since I couldn't. It was as if I had encountered Medusa and was turned to stone. I guess, if you think about it, the last feeling you're left with forever, when you realize your entire life will amount to nothing but a petrified, cold figure, is exactly this. Fear. Pure fear. The kind that makes you realize there is no escape, no chance to do anything to help yourself. These kinds of things never crossed my mind, 'cause I avoid situations that make me uncomfortable, anxious, and especially afraid. I'm not an adventurous person, someone who would seize the moment rather than regret it. But somehow, I ended up here, so scared that I'm unable to move, feeling a terrifying scream caught in my throat, unable to let it out, to even say a word, to ask for help. I knew I should have gotten out of this situation the moment I realized what I had gotten myself into. I shouldn't have come here. It all started this morning when my twin sister, Anne, asked me to go on a boat ride with her. She said she had booked it in advance and had been so excited to go with her fiancé. They paid for and prepared everything, but he got called into work, and she didn't know what to do because they couldn't cancel. She didn't want to go alone. I couldn't say no. I could already see the disappointment on her face, so I agreed to go. I wasn't a big fan of the ocean, but a boat ride didn't seem too bad or demanding. After all, I'd just have to attend and sit through it. My mistake was not paying much attention to her yapping when she told me about it. Her speech was rousing, and I couldn't interrupt and ask her to start over because I wasn't listening. So I ended up on a boat facing my oldest fear. The floating horror in question arrived to pick us up when I realized what I had gotten myself into. I can't believe you're actually doing this with me. I mean, coral reef scuba diving is something anyone would love, but it's such a depth. I thought you had some sort of sea phobia, Anne said. My heart started racing, and I sat down for a moment. I tried to breathe and control my distress, denying my thalassophobia, badly remembered by my sister, after she nagged me about our childhood and how she knew I told her something similar. I finally convinced her to stop searching for my deepest fears. Unlike Anne, I never forgot how everyone laughed at me when I confided in them. I couldn't bear being mocked again, especially now when I'd rather drown than do this. I had to get out of this boat, out of this situation. My palms were sweating, and I could hear my pulse in my ears. Boat engine starts. Oh no! Nope! No way. This can't be happening, I thought. Worst case scenarios flooding my mind. I felt like living all of them, from the overthinking that made my body tense and weak in sudden shifts. I think I'm going to be sick. I feel dizzy. I can't do this. I hated feeling this way, trapped between pessimism and irrational fear. Usually, I use overthinking to my advantage, avoiding anything that would inconvenience me, not to help me escape a real threat or possible deadly situation after filtering it through my thinking. What am I doing? What will I do? I am losing precious time in which I could have found an excuse to turn this boat around. My mind can't work under this pressure, and my body sure isn't very helpful. What's wrong? You seem kind of pale. I hope you're still up for this. I'm so excited to do this with you. Anne? I couldn't let her down. Not when she had that spark in her eyes. A spark I hadn't seen since we were kids. She looked like a 5-year-old on Christmas morning. And maybe I was just being paranoid. Don't worry, I won't ruin this for you. It's just a little motion sickness. I treacherously lied to my sister, with whom I had shared everything my whole life. I couldn't tell her the truth out of fear she'll laugh at me, and I would no longer feel just afraid, but also ashamed and upset. Well then, stop overthinking. As long as you don't get swimming sickness, you'll be fine. We're almost there. Anne smiled warmly, in her specific way that usually melted my worries. But now, it only calmed me enough to avoid turning into a lunatic. We started putting on our equipment as we moved farther and farther into the deep ocean. 1,000 meters? 2,000 meters? It's been a while since we were able to see any land. I didn't want to think about the depth we were at, so I kept telling myself it wasn't that deep. Our ride wasn't longer than an hour, but the motorboat moved fast. Stop it. I won't think about this anymore. Meanwhile, my sister explained the use of everything in our gear and the emergency action plan that we shouldn't get in much detail with because it's just a precaution, as she learned in her training. I would describe it to you, but my mind got blank, and I can't remember a word she said. Sometimes I'm having a hard time paying attention when something else is bothering me, so my thoughts spiraled elsewhere. It was time to enter the water in order to be done and on our way by sunset. Anne dove in head first, waiting for me. I entered slowly from the edge. I think by this time it was clear I wasn't thrilled to do this, so she waited to make sure I'd actually follow her. I wasn't afraid of water or swimming, and the ocean was calm today. If the waves had matched my anxiety, I wouldn't have come this far. I closed my eyes and submerged myself. The world around me and all my worries vanished briefly. I felt weightless and my mind cleared. But the quiet was deafening, and it would soon turn eerie. Once I got used to the feeling, I opened my eyes and my stomach tightened. I felt so small and exposed. All I could see was water, shades of blue forming a bottomless void, darker and darker when you dared to venture below. My sister was having a blast. Her eyes were wide and curious, and her smile kept widening. She pulled my hand to go deeper. I didn't like that idea, but losing myself in this place, with no landmarks to help me navigate for sure, wasn't better. We swam, and I focused on inhaling and exhaling slowly to calm myself, counting every breath rather than the minutes I still had to endure this. 56, 57, 58. I kept swimming slowly to avoid getting tired. What if I reached exhaustion here and didn't have the strength to return to the surface? Cynical me gets all kinds of ideas, but they aren't important now, since I have bigger things to worry about. I hoped my sister would get bored faster, so we could get out of here. It wasn't long until I saw it. At first, I thought we'd been down here for hours, and the sky had darkened with nightfall. But I knew I was wrong, because a few moments later, the lighting changed again. I could see the warm daylight filtering through the surface, like it does through tree branches. 120, 121, 122. Anne noticed it too, and looked up. But the surroundings above us didn't seem to have changed. The second time it happened, it was more sudden and got even darker than before. But like the first time, it faded before our eyes could adjust. I started to worry because I realized faster than Anne what was happening. My body was overcome with fatigue, and I was distressed. You could see the unsettling look on my face as I glanced at my sister, too afraid to check the surroundings. Unlike me, Anne let her reflexes kick in and looked up and down to figure things out. She wasn't agitated or scared. She just lost the charming smile she'd had moments ago and now looked serious. I wanted to curl up and hide. My heart pounded in my chest, so I started to slowly close my eyes, trying to disappear for a second. Just then, my sister grabbed my hand. She managed to pull me just a bit closer, and when I opened my eyes, I saw it. 134, 135, 136, 137. We were both stunned, and it felt like the whole world stopped. I tried to keep breathing, but it felt as though this place and I were frozen in time. It was right in front of us, and I could only see a small part of it, yet it was massive. I couldn't comprehend the size difference in that moment. Its big eye was staring at us, cold and emotionless. This is how my nightmares always began. I would see it and try to swim away, but never managed to escape before waking up. It would catch me and swallow me whole. But in my mind, I imagined the stories you are told as a kid, or the ones you see in movies. This was entirely different. Facing a gigantic whale, feeling it look through your fears, not knowing what to do, or if you'll live to see tomorrow. 149, 150, 151. My eyes were wide open now, pupils dilated, and blood freezing in my veins. I felt like my heart was going to jump out of my chest to get away from it all. Since I couldn't, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to swim to shore, but I was too afraid. I thought that moment would never end until I felt it. Anne grabbed my feet and pushed me toward the surface. 171, 172, 173, 174. After she gave me that boost, I felt like I had the strength to keep going. I swam as fast as I could, not looking back to avoid letting fear overwhelm me. I could see the surface, the sun, and in no time, the sky and the boat. I scrambled in, and as soon as I felt the solid ground beneath my feet, I rubbed my eyes and tried to adjust them to the light as quick as possible. 226, 227,228. I looked in all directions. Water, water, water. All I could see was the damn ocean. I waited a little more, kept looking, but there was nothing. Exhaustion and despair washed over me. I kept searching in sight, but it was hopeless. I couldn't see Anne anywhere. I collapsed onto the cold wooden deck, and tears started rolling down my cheeks. I felt like I was falling apart, so I just stood there for a while, sobbing. I thought about how foolish I'd been not to tell her. Everyone laughed at me for nothing. If I had just told her, she would have understood why I didn't want to do this. I was terrified of whales. Maybe we would have turned back, and this would never have happened. I'm sorry. I kept whispering through my sobs. I knew no one would laugh at me now. I wished I had conquered my fear earlier, so I could have been the one to give her one more breath to take. The end. Harmful intentions. History shows that technological advancement brought about the end of civilization, fragmented into divisions that hastened its collapse. The problem was that the majority thoughtlessly embraced regression, while the intelligent proclaimed that freedom had ended long ago. Freedom ended with an algorithm that read intent, marketed as a savior, but fundamentally incapable of understanding logic. To avoid chaos and preserve harmony, the apology law was introduced. If the algorithm identified someone with intentions deemed harmful, the accused was legally obligated to apologize to the victim. If the accused apologized, and admitted guilt, acknowledging that they had harmful thoughts. They remained in the registry, but were not punished. However, if accused 3 times, or if they refused to apologize, they were declared a danger to society and exiled to the zone of silence, a place where no communication with society was possible. On June 23rd, at 1:10 a.m., 2 lifeless men in bland gray suits appeared at my door. "You are accused of harmful intent," they said, offering no further explanation. I had no choice but to go with them. The 2 gray men escorted me to a claustrophobic cell with concrete walls, no windows, and a single chair in the center. They told me they'd come for me at 6 in the morning to take me to trial. It was already 3 a.m. All I had was panic and the chair. In those few hours, I tried to recall all the harmful intents I might have harbored in my life. The problem was that I was one of those quiet, introverted types. A person everyone says wouldn't hurt a fly. Nothing came to mind. I recalled no one provoking harmful intent. I was used to being a doormat. Tired of fighting back, I spent my days writing. My wife had left with her colleague, and I preferred the solitude to her insults, calling me useless. Silence, at least, offered peace. Society, fractured by the constant surveillance of the algorithm, had left me without friends. That was the problem. I had lost the will to live in such a society, along with any desire or intention. Smoking, drinking coffee, and writing were habits, not intentions. Detention bewildered me. I didn't even live with intent. I suppose it was recently 6 o'clock in the morning when the 2 gray men returned for me. They didn't strike me as the type to joke about seconds. They led me through narrow, gray painted corridors with gray doors on either side until we arrived at an empty courtroom where they gestured for me to sit. The courtroom reeked of bleach, as though executions had occurred. Suddenly, it dawned on me. What if the algorithm, incapable of interpreting context and logic in thoughts and feelings, had interpreted one of my stories as harmful intent? It was true that I often vented my frustrations by punishing characters in my stories. The algorithm must have misinterpreted every artist. That explains the disappearance of art. At that moment, a prosecutor burst into the courtroom as swiftly as a swallow's tail. But there was no defense attorney. That profession no longer existed. The prosecutor was a tall, skinny man, one of those people you'd say had been consumed by malice from the inside out. A worm, a tall worm with feet. He wiggled constantly, twisting as if he itched all over or urgently needed the restroom. As the worm ignored me, I let my gaze wander across the courtroom. The gray walls pulsed, rearranging with each blink. Above the judge's bench, AI slogans flickered erratically. Freedom is the absence of choice. Apologize to survive. Their chaos reflected my growing despair. It became clear that I no longer existed, even as an artist. AI wrote instead of me. The worm wiggled, pointing to the door. A figure entered, the judge of intent, and took his seat at the bench. His mismatched face and darting eyes gave him a grotesque, puppet-like appearance. When he spoke, his voice didn't match his mouth. His lips, twisted in perpetual disgust and drooping to his neck, bore no relation to the words emerging as if dubbed. For a while, the judge leafed through documents in complete silence. I assumed they were about me, though I couldn't imagine what they might contain. I didn't dare to speak or ask. When he finished, he looked at the worm, who leaped to his feet as if stung, and began speaking in such a formal tone that I struggled to follow. Your Honor, the accused was caught red-handed in the act of harboring harmful thoughts, and the prosecution will easily prove this. Only then did he take a breath. You are accused of thought crimes, the judge said. Which thoughts? I asked, my voice cracking. He paused, tilting his head like a machine processing input. Your thoughts. All of them. But Defensiveness confirms intent, he interrupted. My voice collapsed in my throat. I didn't know what they wanted me to confess. And perhaps neither did they. How do you plead? The judge asked, his voice rasping, as though he'd been smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day since birth. Plead, Your Honor. I mimicked how the worm addressed him. Plead to what? The accused refuses to admit guilt and apologize to the victim, thereby obstructing the legal remedy. Legal remedy? I thought. Am I sick? Sick with what? Does the prosecution have witnesses? The judge rasped again, directing his gaze at the worm. The worm grinned, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. We call the accused's teacher as the first witness. My teacher, I thought. Back when I went to school, there was no algorithm. If anyone acted harmfully, it was that tyrant of a teacher. The teacher, nicknamed Psycho, entered, older but unchanged. He had been infamous for flailing and throwing things in class, only to quickly smile as if nothing had happened. Hence the nickname. Now, Psycho was frail and nearly blind, bumping into the witness stand before taking his seat. When given the word, he began in a saccharine voice. Your Honor, I did everything in my power to properly shape this boy. Perhaps I even contributed to his harmful nature, but my hands were tied. As a teacher, I wasn't allowed to discipline him more severely, and by nature, I am a gentle soul. While Psycho spoke sweetly, I pictured him hurling chairs. He had harmful intent, Psycho said. When boys beat him, I saw retaliation in his eyes. Retaliation? I feared. I also recall a literature class where the students were asked to write essays about their father's occupations. When I called on him, having no father, he hadn't completed the assignment. Naturally, I gave him a failing grade. His tear-filled eyes turned red as blood. I swear he wanted to burn the school down. Burn the school down? I just wanted to cry. As I've aged, some memories have faded, but I can swear to this. One day, when other children pointed and laughed at him because his mother still brought him to school and waited for him after class, he wet himself. I'm certain he imagined a gun at that moment. They weren't pointing at me, I thought. They were throwing rocks at me while I cowered in the corner, bloody and bruised. Your Honor. Psycho leaned forward, his eyes wide with sincerity. The accused often sat in my class and stared out the window. I saw the intent in his eyes, an intent to escape, to defy the order of the classroom. The judge nodded gravely, pronouncing, "Escapism leads to anarchy." He has been a menace to society from birth. There is no doubt that he is guilty. The judge allowed Psycho to leave the courtroom. As he shuffled out, painfully slow, or as fast as he could manage, I wondered, how is it possible that even after these absurd and grotesque accusations made up by a tyrant, I feel a harmful intent toward him? The judge turned to me again, rasping, "Do you admit guilt and apologize to the victim?" "Guilt for what?" I asked, confused. Am I actually on trial for one of the ridiculous situations described by a madman? "No," the judge replied coldly. "The prosecutor has brought witnesses to testify about your character, which is evidently prone to harmful intent. You are on trial for an intent only you can admit, and you must apologize to an anonymous victim. Otherwise, you will be exiled to the zone of silence." "Then, no. I truly don't know what intent you're referring to. Wouldn't it be simpler to tell me the accusation so I can respond to a real charge?" "You clearly don't understand the system. Prosecutor, call your next witness." The worm wiggled with delight, announcing, "I call the accused's wife to the stand." She entered, adorned with gaudy jewelry, her hair styled into an overdone perm that made her head look enormous. Her makeup-caked blouse emphasized her unattractiveness. A harpy, I thought. We had vowed to stand by each other in good times and bad. Yet here she was, standing as one of the pillars of doom, ready to crush me. I sat there, devastated, staring at the table, holding my head. I didn't have the strength to look at her, perhaps the most important person in my life, betraying me to prove her loyalty to the system for her own survival, unconsciously blending the dialects from my southern birthplace and her western home. She made a strong effort to speak in the central dialect. It was quite funny, but my reaction barely reached the corners of my lips. The main heroine of a Turkish soap opera couldn't have been more unconvincing and exaggerated, Your Honor, she said tearfully, though no tears appeared. This man stole my youth. The algorithm should have caught him sooner. She clutched a tissue she didn't use. He once asked if I was happy. Such doubt is harmful to harmony. I had once loved her confidence until I saw her superficiality for what it was. She added a sniff. I love this man, but I love the truth more. I'll tell you everything. The truth that the perm wasn't the best idea, I thought bitterly. I married him out of love, but he hid his harmful intent until the wedding. Soon after, he began calling me degrading names like useless and a rag. I looked up in shock. Why is she blaming me for her words? I feared his intent to harm me or end any chance of having a child. She threw herself across the bench dramatically, sobbing loudly, but still without a single tear. This deeply hurt me. After years of silence, I reacted with a yell. What are you saying? How dare you? I begged you for a child all these years, but you said you didn't want some brat to ruin your beauty. The judge interrupted me with a loud thump of his gavel, stating that he wouldn't allow me to insult the poor woman on the stand. I sat down, stunned, clutching my head. Am I crazy? Maybe they're all telling the truth, but my perception is warped. But if this is true, then I'm not me. I don't know who I am anymore. As my thoughts struggled to regain some clarity, the actress on the stand continued her performance. Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to add the most harmful intent of the accused. The accused? I thought. So now she's stripping away my very name, my status, my identity. I know I'm not perfect, but that's only because I respect the algorithm. The accused loved silence, and I preferred to speak my intentions out loud rather than live in fear of how they might be interpreted. Sometimes I wonder if I lost him in all that noise, or if I simply didn't understand him. She paused dramatically. But the algorithm is far more important to me, even more than my appearance. Maybe that's why he told me he wanted to leave me for his colleague. But I refused. And since the law doesn't allow divorce unless both parties agree, she paused for a long moment. He intended to kill me. She collapsed, fake sobbing and writhing in exaggerated anguish. A weak range of actions for such an actress, while the worm escorted the exhausted woman out of the courtroom. I remained frozen. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the judge asking me for the third time if I admitted guilt and offered an apology to the victim. I responded from some other place. The words slowly came out of me, almost mechanically. If we were caricaturing the roles, this woman, my wife, would be the victim. Am I accused of killing her? I asked. Well, yes, I must have killed her. There's no other explanation. Is this the guilt I must admit and apologize to this victim of genocide? Don't make me repeat myself. The judge was now even angrier. I told you that the witnesses don't know the reason for your trial. Only you know your intent. Will you admit it? But what worse intent could I have than murder? For murder, you'd be punished without trial. But your disgusting, repulsive, vile intent could shake society to its core and completely destabilize harmony. I sat down, mouth agape. Prosecutor, introduce the final witness, after which I will deliver the verdict. Completely beside myself, lost in my identity, and thus lost from the courtroom, I didn't notice that my mother had burst through the door and jumped onto me over the desk. She clung to me, caressing me roughly, as if slapping me, and hanging from the desk, trying to reach me with kisses. "You're mine! I won't let anyone have you!" As the worm gently pulled her off me and led her to the witness stand, I remained motionless. I just turned my head toward the window and stayed catatonic. Meanwhile, she wailed, "Let me take him home. I won't have anyone to sniff my flesh to see if it's gone bad, to call to come for me every time I have a diarrhea attack." He didn't mean it. All the teachers loved him. His wife adores him. He's a model citizen. I never let him out of my hands. He's my baby, my lover. He's my trophy, proof of my perfection. If you condemn him, you condemn me too. Come to mother, son. Let me nurse you once again. I stared through the window, a lifeless person inside me, into the lifeless city. In the background of the so-called harmony, this society operates like a perfectly tuned machine. Silence on the streets, people moving in neat lines with minimal interaction, and a complete loss of the spontaneity of human connection. While they forcefully dragged some mad woman out of the courtroom, I noticed the passers-by didn't even raise their eyes, as if everyone had already been condemned to silence. Absently, I heard the judge asking me for the last time if I admitted guilt and offered an apology. Out of my body, as if hypnotized, I whispered, "What guilt? For what? Who?" I've always been more afraid of hurting someone else than myself. The worm, now almost gleeful, turned to the judge, who looked at me with wide eyes. "So, you admit?" "What am I admitting?" I asked, my mind still reeling. "You admit your harmful intent?" I didn't understand. The judge nodded to the worm, who whispered to me, "You just admitted your harmful intent." What did I say? That I would rather hurt myself than hurt others? "Yes," the worm rejoiced. And then it hit me. The previous night, I had thought about how I never quite fit in, how I had no life or expectations, and that the best thing would have been to end my life long ago. So that's it? I'm being accused because suicide seemed like the only way out. The judge regained his official tone. "Accused, stand up. It is my duty to read the law to you again. The court offers leniency. If you admit guilt and apologize, the punishment will be light, but your name will remain in the register of those with bad intent. If you are accused 3 times or refuse to admit guilt and apologize to the victim, you will be declared a danger to society and exiled to the zone of silence, a place where no communication with society is possible. What will it be? Declare yourself, apologize to the victim, or be declared a danger to society. I pose no harm to society, only to myself. So I must be the victim. Yes, I am the victim. All these years, I've been helpless, not knowing how to fight, how to live, how to be human. That's why I intended to take my life. I finally spoke. Your Honor, I admit I had a harmful thought, I said, but not guilt. I will not apologize because it's not my guilt. And it's not for me to apologize. The judge's tired eyes met mine. He raised the gavel, declaring, "Guilty." As I was led to the zone of silence, I passed a wall with faint writing on it, barely legible, written by a shaking hand. Silence is not the end. I couldn't help feeling I wasn't alone. Silence embraced me. In it, I found myself. The zone was truly silent, but not deafening, peaceful. Finally, I could hear my heart, my breath, my thoughts. Here, in a world without judgment, I was no longer a son, nor a husband, nor part of society. I was simply me. This wasn't the end, but the beginning. Silence. Let me exist. Silence is freedom. What she left behind. California, 1868. Clara Emerson pressed herself against the train window, her eyes glazed and alert from exhaustion. She stretched out her aching legs, revealing her muddy shoes that poked out from underneath the hem of her dress. She retracted her feet back from visibility, gathering and stroking her straw-like, graying hair as she peered out the window. Clara glanced to see if anyone was watching her. Only a handful of people sat behind her, none of which were looking in her direction. No, I'm safe. She drew in a deep breath, steadying herself. But unease coiled in her chest and churned in her belly. Turning in her seat, she lowered her gaze to the small diamond band on her finger. Sunlight caught in its facets, scattering tiny prisms across her skin. For just a moment, she marveled at its beauty. Clara looked up and locked eyes with a man several seats ahead, clean-shaven, with thin-framed spectacles perched on his nose. The man stared at her with a hollow, unreadable expression. Her pulse kicked. How long had he been watching her without her noticing? Her skin went and clammy, like a predator spotting easy prey. The man rose from his seat and approached her, not breaking eye contact once. Clara's stiffened in her seat as the man approached. "Go away. May I sit? I have a long journey ahead of me, and I could sure use the company," he said to her. "No." Of course, the man sat down across from her. His eyes remained on her, almost as if they were boring into her very soul. "Didn't anyone tell you it's rude to stare?" she asked him, hoping that illuminating his behavior would cause him to cease. But it did not. "Forgive me, ma'am. It's just, you look so familiar. Do we know each other, perhaps?" "No, I don't recall your face. You must be mistaken." "No, I think we do know each other." Why won't he quit? "Where are you from?" "I'm not going to tell you that. You haven't even told me who you are." "Ah, how foolish of me. My name is Simon Klein." He leaned forward, extending his hand to her. He sat back down and continued to stare at her, expectantly this time. Clara sighed, brushing a strand of hair out of her face. "I'm Elaine. Elaine Whitmore. Elaine. I would have taken you for an Alice or Charlotte or Clara." Clara froze in her seat, her eyes wide and her palms sweaty. "Who is this man?" "No, I'm just Elaine." Mr. Klein gave her a wry smile, shaking his head. "So, where are you headed to?" Clara shrugged. "Anywhere that's far away from here." "Ah, come on. California's the place to be. There's opportunity here." "Not for me. Not anymore." "Shame," he said. "What is?" Mr. Klein chuckled. "Surely you have friends or family that will miss you. It almost sounds like you're running away." Now he was just getting on her nerves. "You're quite brazen, Mr. Klein. My business is none of your concern." Mr. Klein pressed his lips tightly together, as if he were in pain, and forced out a smile. "My apologies, Mrs. Whitmore. I never quite learned how to keep my nose out of others' affairs. I am a curious fellow, curious indeed." Hoping to break the tension, she pulled out a flask from underneath her shawl. "Care for a drink?" A wild glimmer in his eyes appeared. It was as if he wanted to reach out and strangle her. "No, thank you," he said, his demeanor shifting. There was something dangerous underneath this man's calm exterior. Somehow, that made him more terrifying. If he were angry and violent from the start of their encounter, she could predict his next move and accept that she was under attack. But this man unnerved her to her core. There was something almost familiar about him. Gathering her shawl, she stood from her seat, and as steady as she could present herself to be, she faced him. "I think I would prefer to be in my own company for the rest of the journey. Good day to you. Please, there's no need to leave. If you wish to be alone, I can accommodate." Mr. Klein stood, moving back to his original seat. Clara returned to hers, facing away from Mr. Klein this time. But she could still feel his eyes on her. She waited until the train had passed a dilapidated old shack close to the tracks before rising from her seat and creeping her way down toward the caboose. Her heart quickened, as did her pace. "Excuse me, sir," she heard behind her. Sucking in a breath, she chanced a glance behind her, locking eyes with Mr. Klein, who was trailing close behind her. He did not smile this time at her. His eyes were cold and focused on her intently, like before. But there was a rage in those eyes, a bloodlust, in fact. She didn't think twice this time, turning and running down the aisle like a mad woman. She stumbled through the empty train carts, praying an escape plan would present itself to her before he reached her. But there wasn't enough time, and there was nowhere left to run. "I'm trapped." She looked out the back window and considered the tracks. Maybe she could jump. Maybe. She might still have a chance. The door behind Clara creaked open. She spun around to see Mr. Klein reaching into his coat pocket, revealing a silver pistol. She backed away slowly, keeping her eyes trained on Mr. Klein, if that even was his name, and she pressed herself against the back door of the caboose. He pointed the barrel at her. Rage oozed out from beneath the calm, collected persona he performed earlier. His hand trembled, but he remained in control of himself for the moment. Clara trembled, terrified of what he would do to her. "What do you want from me? Why are you following me?" "I saw you," Mr. Klein said. "I saw what you did to my sister that night." Whatever she planned on saying to him, the words fell empty in her mouth. "This is it. It's over." "What? You thought no one saw you sneak out of her house in the dead of night? And I find my sister dead in her home? No, that's a lie. I would never harm anyone. I'm a good woman." "How do you sleep at night?" he said, his finger twitchy on the trigger. "I know it was you who did it. No sooner had I returned from my hunting trip, I see you sneaking out of her house like some rat. She was dead when I found her. Please, have mercy on me. I would never do such a thing. Liar." Mr. Klein drew closer. She fumbled for the handle behind her, desperate for escape. Her weight against the door caused it to swing open, landing her on her back. She held her hands over her head to shield herself. "Why?" he cried. "Why did you do it? Tell me!" A shrill, raspy whistle emanated from the front of the train, distracting Mr. Klein for the briefest moment. Clara seized the opportunity and kicked Mr. Klein in the shin, dropping him to his knees. He screamed, clutching his leg as the gun clattered next to him. Without a second thought, she scrambled for the pistol and swiped it, aiming the barrel at him. "Get up," she said. Mr. Klein held his hands up. pushing himself up off the floor. I'm not the one that deserves this. I'm not going to die today. She pressed her finger to the trigger, but it wouldn't budge. The hammer. Mr. Klein grabbed hold of the barrel and yanked it back hard. Too hard. Clara released the pistol, and with it, Mr. Klein, screaming as he staggered backward, tumbling off the train. He hit the tracks hard, rolling like a rag doll, before coming to rest, bloodied and limp, his lifeless eyes fixed toward the sky. The wind violently whipped Clara's hair as Mr. Klein's body disappeared beyond view. She steadied herself against the railing, her thumb absent-mindedly tracing the curve of the diamond, lost in a thought she refused to finish. Rancor, burning, running down the train's aisle. Sable had to try her best to avoid people. Unfortunately, she had to push some people out the way, praying to whoever was listening that she hadn't hurt them. That's not what she wanted. She took one quick moment to look back, only to see the strange man in black still chasing her. Letting out a frustrated groan, she moved her focus back to the path in front of her, fast enough to see the upcoming obstacle, the dinner cart. Every afternoon at 1 p.m., one of the staff members would bring around the lunch cart. Sable was many a time excited to see this, but today was a different story. It now stood between her and her life. God damn it! She had to think fast, looking to the sides she thought about, maybe climbing the seats, but she thought better of it. It would take too long to scramble over them. No, the only way was over the cart. Someone was definitely going to get hurt this time. The lady that was serving lunch bent down to get something for someone from under the trolley. This was her chance. She placed her first foot on the poor lady's back, shouting an apology as shocked gasps were let out around her. Her other foot landed steadily on the top of the cart, jumping down. She landed on 2 feet, but wobbled forward, steadying herself on the arms of the chairs in front of her. But she knew she couldn't stop. Looking back again, she noticed the man in black was now fighting with people beyond the cart, smiling to herself, knowing this would but her. Sometime she kept going. When she got to the connecting door, she frantically pushed the release button. The door whizzed open. Scrambling inside, relief flooded her body when the door sealed behind her. It was only when she turned that she found herself in an empty carriage. Panic set in again when she realized that there was nowhere to hide in here. She knew her only option was to make it to the next carriage and hope to everything good that there would be somewhere to hide in there. But Sable only made it halfway to the door when the whole train jerked violently. So much so that it threw her off balance and she stumbled to the floor. To make matters even worse, as she was starting to stand up, all the lights completely shut out. Her first thought was that the energy field that kept the train safe out here in space had failed. If she wasn't terrified before, she was now for a completely different reason. Hearing the whiz of the door that she had just come through, she spun around to face it. But the darkness of the carriage was too much for her to even see her hand in front of her face, squinting as if that would make it easier for her to see. A white, hot flash lit up the entire carriage. It was only a second, but she could hear the strange man's hurried footsteps coming towards her. She knew she had to move forward as quickly as she could. Without knocking herself out, she felt for the sides of the carriage. She listened and heard the footsteps stop. Now the only sound was heavy breathing from both parties. She didn't know what to do. Her mind was racing too fast. She could make a run towards where she thought the other door was to the joining carriage. But what if she tripped or ran into something? Then the strange man in black would definitely know where she was. Just like before, there was a 1-second flash of hot white light. She caught a glimpse of the man who now stood in front of her, in the middle where she was once stood. Although this time he was facing the wrong way. And so, luckily, he didn't see where she was this time. Lightning. That's what the flashes were. It must have been a power surge that had stopped the train. At least, that was one less thing to worry about. This was like a nightmare. And just when she thought it couldn't get any worse, a red glow of the emergency lights just above Sable's head flashed on her face. She couldn't move. She was frozen in place, like a statue. He would surely see her now. She wished for the lights to go back out before he turned, but it was too late. Looking back, she saw the man was now staring right at her. The look on his face said everything that Sable needed to know. Panic set in again, and she tried to think of what to do, how to get out of this, but her brain was scrambled. The man started to charge, seeing her life flash before her eyes. And that's when it came to her. A month earlier, she had been running from the man in black for the first time. Ever since she had boarded the train at Lorth, she had felt like someone was watching her, which then had escalated to her finding out that someone was definitely following her. She had sneaked onto the train, more than ready to start her new life. 2 years ago, she had seen off her twin brother, Sky, and his partner, Jess, who were to travel to Rancor first. Sable had to stay behind to sort out some debts before she left Lorth, which was easier said than done. It was when she started to rank in more debts that she decided that she was done. She missed her brother, and so she would get on the light train no matter what. She tried to hurry down the aisle, but she didn't want to bring any more attention to herself than what she already was. Sliding into the first available seat she came across, she sunk into the fabric, trying to make herself as small as possible. She suitably looked back from the side of the seat to see a strange guy, all in black, stop at the threshold of the carriage, scanning every seat, but not moving forward. Running from someone? Turning quickly to where the voice had come from, she hadn't noticed that she had sat in one seat of 4 that had a table in the middle. A man was sat directly in front of her. He slowly put down the book that he had been reading. His hair was a lightish, mousy brown and shoulder length. Sable noticed it had a slight wave to it. "No, I just thought I heard the dinner cart." She tried a smile, but she was still out of breath from running. Liar. The stranger leaned forward, placing both his elbows on the table that separated them. "You were running from someone. You tried to make it not noticeable, at which you failed miserably at. It was quite amusing, actually. Besides, the lunch cart only comes around at 1 p.m. sharp. Has done for the past 2 weeks we've been on this train." Sable squinted at the man as he smirked at her. She could have sworn that as he bared his teeth, she saw 2 fangs at either side. "So what are you going to do? We're only 2 weeks into our year-long journey to Rancor. You don't know how far you can run in this tin can. They're going to catch up with you soon enough." Sable looked to the side, trying to avoid the question. This was the first window Sable had come across on the train. Hiding in the luggage compartment, had no way to see outside, and she hadn't really had time to concentrate on her surroundings while running. She didn't know what planet they were passing, but it was beautiful. Past the energy field that surrounded the train, that shimmered of iridescent pinks and yellows. The massive planet just beyond them was a tan color. Its clouds were splodges of bright orange and dark pink. The ring that spanned around the planet was made of rock pieces that were all different shapes and sizes. Sable had to bring herself back to her reality. "I'll be fine." Looking around again, with panic streaming through her veins, she had forgot that the strange man was still looking for her. "Well, stranger, my name is Wilder, and I'm going to Rancor to start a new life of peace and hopefully happiness. How about you?" She was only half listening, more focused on trying to wait for any opening she could so she could make a run for it. Just when she thought she would have to stay in the seat a bit longer, the man in black got distracted by something behind him. Getting up, out of her seat, she went to pass the stranger that she had only just caught him saying his name was Wilder. She wasn't trying to be rude, but she had no time to make friends right now. But as she went to pass him, he grabbed her arm gently. "Look, I don't have time to chat right now. I'd appropriate it if you'd let me go." And so he did, going back casually to reading his book, but not without saying one last time, "Good luck. Whistle if you need any help." Confused at what he was implying, she knew she shouldn't be wasting this opportunity to run. Looking to check the man in black was still distracted, she finally took off down the rest of the carriage. She did it without even thinking. pursued her lips together. She whistled. The strange man who had started to lunge at her again stopped dead in his tracks, looking almost frightened. A look which faded almost instantaneously. She brought her right arm up to defend her face, but the blow never came. Lowering her arm, she looked around her to find the man in black was now crumpled in a ball at the far left wall. Light filled the carriage again, and it was like time stopped. You whistled. The man that now stood in front of her, like a ghost, she remembered was named Wilder, the same one she had met about a month ago. How did you... What? Never mind about that now. He grabbed her wrist gently and tugged her towards the door that led into the next carriage. We need to leave before someone discovers he's dead. Wilder had dragged her through 2 carriages before she stopped him. They were now in what looked like a kitchen area, and her eyes went straight to a knife block that sat on the counter behind where Wilder stood. He turned to see what she was looking at. Don't even think about it. I'm here to help you. Need I remind you, I just saved your life. He stood across from her, his hand raised, and finger pointed at her, like he was telling off a naughty child. I wasn't. They just caught my attention, that's all. Wilder looked at her, like he didn't believe a word she was saying. And to be fair to him, she couldn't blame him. They both leaned back on the counters, seeming to relax a little and to get their breaths back. You never answered my question. She looked up at him. This was the first time she was actually taking his image in. He was tall and slim, but he had some muscle to him. He wore slim black pants and a tan, round-necked t-shirt that was covered by a black leather jacket. His eyes were what stood out the most to Sable, though. They were the lightest blue, with little specks of green in them. Sable. My name's Sable, and I'm going to Rancor to reunite with my brother, Sky. Wilder gave her another wild smile, and once again, she caught sight of fangs. He'd crossed his arms over his chest. Wasn't so hard, was it? Sable rolled her eyes and started to walk again. That was a thank you for saving my life. Everyone was gathered in carriages that were purely made of glass. Sable worked out fairly quickly that these rooms were made for passengers. First look at Rancor. It was an exciting event, looking at your future paradise for the first time. Sable and Wilder has spent the rest of the months on the light train, getting to know each other. He wasn't as bad as she first thought. He was funny and insightful, and after months of spending every day with him, she started to feel something for him. They both stood in the middle of the carriage. People crammed in around them. They were all waiting for the final jump. There was something I didn't tell you. Sable turned to Wilder, not expecting him to look so sheepish. What is it? I don't think the strange man in black was after you. Sable's eyebrows furrowed, and her head tilted when she spoke. What do you mean? She didn't understand. Why was he bringing this up now? They had rid themselves of that man many months ago. He was after me. He was a shadow stalker. Sable laughed. Shadow stalkers were something of legend. They hunted down and killed an ancient race of vampires. But all those stories were now like Chinese whispers. Ha, good one. But his face was still stone cold. She'd never seen Wilder like this. But vampires don't exist. Wilder, stop being silly. We're supposed to be having a good moment. They do exist. I do exist. Sable, unconsciously, took a step away from him, just as the light train jumped, and everyone around them started to cheer. But they were only looking at each other. Confusion crossed her face when she came to a realization. The fangs, when you smile. Wait. But if he was after you all this time, then why did it seem like he was always following me? Wilder tried to walk towards her, but Sable just took another step back. Because it was me who was following you, which in turn meant that he was only technically following you. Her breath started to quicken, but she was suddenly distracted by the intense orange glow that was reflecting in Wilder's eyes. She hadn't even noticed that she hadn't been paying attention to anything but the man, if you could even call him that, in front of her. Turning quickly, the screams and sobbing of everyone around her filled her ears. It took Sable a few moments to adjust to what she was looking at. The planet in front of them, their new start, their new home, was entirely in flames. Orange flames, like veins, ran around the whole planet. They had been told that Rancor would be blooming with greens and purples, even from the outside. But now, all they saw were red and blacks. Sable didn't know when she had reached for Wilder's hand, but the only thing she could feel was his gentle squeezes to keep her grounded. Everything she had just found out was forgotten. Everyone around them were running around, crying and freaking out. Some were on their knees, heads in their hands, and their bodies shaking. Wilder would never get his life of freedom, and Sable would never see her twin again. High-speed train. Congressman David Chen found himself where he never guessed he'd be. The dining car on the express. A high-speed train humming through the Hungarian countryside. A patchwork of browns and gray dirty snow flashed by. Abandoned Soviet-era factories passed surreal in skeletal frames, riddled with broken windows and crumbling walls. David's head pounded. Nausea caused him to sweat. He hated trains, but loved his wife, and the Prague conference was over. Just one more meeting, and then he and his wife could take a river cruise out of Budapest. Studying the wine list across from David sat Marcus Blackwood. When the waiter came, he ordered a 2016 Tokaji. The waiter paused and bit his lower lip, avoiding Blackwood's eyes. "We only have a 2018. Your boss promised the 2016, Blackwood said. stroking his precisely trimmed stubble. "I suggest you find it, or else." David noted his old friend, the Blackwood he'd grown up with, the new director of Aid Alliance, had mastered making threats. "Trains have a finite quality," Blackwood mused as they waited for the wine. "Once you're on them, you can't get off." David sipped water from a crystal glass. "But you can change the destination. That depends on who's controlling the switches," Blackwood said. "By the way, how's your Sarah? She starts Columbia in the fall. Is that right? The tuition must be a killer." His stomach rolled over. How did Blackwood know about the Columbia acceptance letter? "She's fine. Elizabeth and I are quite proud of her. I saw you with Elizabeth at the Prague conference. Vacation? Yes. Doubling up the conference with time in Budapest." Blackwood winked. "And a write-off for the entire trip?" Blackwood tossed his right hand. "I was thinking about how we've known each other since the early days. Hell, I was at your wedding. We're warriors, you and I. Into the breach and all that. Well, this warrior is getting tired of the congressional grind. I'm thinking of not running next term. Call it quits." Blackwood laughed, his thick frame tight against his dress shirt. "Say it ain't so. No, I would quit. But there's more I want to do. A few years, maybe. Then on to the speaker circuit. Or maybe a pack." The waiter returned with a 2016. "We're in luck, Mr. Blackwood." He opened the wine, offered a taste, then served them both. He carefully placed the bottle on the immaculate white tablecloth. "About your upcoming committee vote," Blackwood said. "Aid distribution, of course, is of paramount importance. But with our audit showing only 30 cents on the dollar reaching recipients, there's some pushback we're fighting against." "I've reviewed the proposal," David said. $8 billion might take some time to get through committee. Blackwood adjusted his broad shoulders and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We need to think about this from the 30,000-foot view," he said. "After all, think of the optics. We're supporting democracy, fighting corruption, and aiding fledgling governments who need the world's help." The waiter refilled their wine glasses while the two men looked on. When he left, Blackwood gulped his wine, leaned into the table, and reached out to adjust David's tie. "Our organization believes there's a benefit to a network of partners. We need expertise to walk us through a complex banking system, the regulatory environment. Would you consider getting involved? A non-profit, hip deep in money laundering," David thought. "Excessive compensation, shell companies. A big plunge for a guy who doesn't fudge on taxes. Never has. Never will. I'm a congressman. I can't touch this, you know that," David said. No. "Your role would be legitimate, I assure you," Blackwood said. "That's what the advisory board is all about. Insurance for," he chuckled, "derailments. We want you as a board member after your term ends. It's just, well, in the meantime, we'd like your advice." as a friend. The dulled rush of an opposing train sped by their window. Blackwood steepled his hands in front of him. "How's Elizabeth's gallery, by the way? Her art might be worth more once she's passed. Of course, that could be decades away. We certainly don't want any harm to come to her, do we?" Blackwood looked down and cut another piece of his steak. David's fork froze on the way to his mouth. He felt anger ripping his insides at the veiled threat against his wife. After slowly setting his fork down, he picked up his wine glass. His hand shook as he gripped the glass, but he gripped harder, and then harder still. The train entered a tunnel. David lost his concentration, diverted by the sudden brightness of the two men's reflection in the window. He stared at the image, but the man in the reflection who looked like him didn't stare back, but shattered the glass with his hand. David stared, transfixed. His reflection picked up a shard with his bleeding hand and wrapped the pointed glass with his cloth napkin. He then reached across the table and slashed Blackwood's throat. Blood splattered on the table as the reflection of Blackwood collapsed. The reflection blanked out as the train shot from the tunnel exit, the horn howling into the twilight. David stared at the wine glass in his hand. Blackwood was no longer across from him. David stumbled from the dining car. He lurched down the corridor to his sleeper cabin, fell into Elizabeth as she opened the door, reeled to the water closet, and retched in the toilet. "David, what happened?" Elizabeth called through the door. "My God!" The train approached the outskirts of the city. High rises ahead, pinned to the night sky. The lights in the windows staring down. Soon the train squealed into the station. Elizabeth gripped her husband's arm as they walked to the taxi stand, her eyes riveted on his face. "David? Darling? Are you okay? What happened?" "It's nothing," he said. She held him closer. "Are you feeling better? Talk to me. Did you forget anything?" David steadied himself against his wife. "No, I haven't left anything." As they walked to the taxi stand, he felt in his gut that Blackwood was gone. He realized he'd left him on the train. Some things you can never explain, he thought. But then he felt oddly privileged. He smiled, and even the grime of Budapest tasted a little cleaner. Fate, or science, or the devil himself had stepped in. But not God, he thought. No, this wasn't God. It was another presence who didn't like the alliance, weighing the direction of his daughter's future, his wife's safety, or the price for his looking the other way. "Your hand's bleeding," Elizabeth said. "It looks like a piece of glass. Those eyes of mine." The machine beeped, boiled and seethed. I pressed the button, and water leaked, filling the cup to its brim. A cup of coffee, pure. I opened the window wide, letting the breeze tingle the fuzz on my nape. Sat beneath it, picked up the cigarette from the ashtray that had burned lonely for so long that the ash stretched from its tip almost to the cotton, forming a bridge undisturbed by its weight. I shook it off and pulled on it. The taste of burned butt dominated the tobacco tang. The coffee cleansed it. Drops from the drizzle intruded on my domicile, enhancing the soothing effect of the wind on the dots they marred. The sun had tucked tail and crept behind clouds. Rest, the doctor had prescribed. Nerves, stretched thin, throbbed in harmony with the rain. Oh, the rain. How could I, Doc? The weather called my name. I donned my shoes and jacket, closed the door, strode down the stairs to the streets. The slabs of cement towered over, reaching for the skies. The drops welcomed me, painting me gently. A ball snuck in, got trapped between my eyes and glasses, while the rest rained down like arrows on a battlefield. People buzzed up and around, busy little bees. Yet, however or whomever I tried to peek at, all that I managed to see was but a blur, mangled by the shower, by the rain, by its tears. They paved a path for themselves, dug ruts on my glasses. My vision failed to pierce. I trailed what I assumed to be their tracks. When one's feet made space for themselves on the puddles as they stepped and left it vacant when they departed, that's when the ensuing spot got filled with water. It created a momentary footstep. That's what I followed. A fleeting moment along the restless ponds, vibrating in seclusion from one another. The vista of concrete proved inescapable. For the moment, the puddles were left undisturbed. That's what they showed. A reflection of gray, hubs of broken dreams. The vehicles behaved strangely under the rain. They too beeped, stalled, and buzzed around. The path led me along the blocks, passing from one street to the other. The vistas remained the same. Were they copies of one another? Or was I stuck in place? I lifted my head and flicked the flock of drops off my locks. That was the third bus stop that I approached. The carrier reloaded, its travelers hurrying outside with new ones coming on board. To avoid the crowd, I lingered in my gait, pulled out my pack, and plucked a treat. The way it nested on my lips brought a moment of respite. The lighter struggled, producing sparks, again and again. Yet no flame. The rain dampened both. The bus drove off. I continued my journey with no obstacles in sight, threading the many tracks left behind. Need a light? A question asked from beneath the canopy of the stop. The mess on my glasses had turned to a layer, a coat of mist, a mush of hair, clothes, legs, and arms, and a lighter lit with a gray-washed flame. I crouched, touched the light, and tasted the smoke, pulled my head back into the rain. What? You'll just leave? The tender voice continued, anchoring me on the dock. I pondered. Was one cigarette enough? No. I towed 2 butts out of their home and returned the gesture. My glasses slid as I crouched, parked on the peaking bone of my nose. The clouds had slid too, allowing the sun to shoot its beams on the glass walls of the bus stop. Their pallid reflection blinded me, but I felt the pack lighten. The person lagged, suggesting hesitation. Disturbed by the sudden change in the weather, I looked back at the sun, but it was no more. Thicker clouds had settled in. The rain was picking up heat. Don't miss the next one. If you wish to avoid the deluge, that is, I said, stowing the pack into my pocket. The hymning tone concealed a plea behind my ear, maybe one of attention or of interaction. Entertaining these ideas had brought me here, so I failed to see a reason for another attempt. My surroundings grew tired, a waterlogged world crying in its stead. Steps continued. The rain poured. The worse it got, the fewer people brooded. How did I end up here, I wondered, amid this city, amid the crosses of colorless walls, and amid the faceless people? How far had I wandered? How long it had been? I swerved on the road, heading towards the park. An island with different scenery. Or so I thought. The rain had dug its claws here too, washing away all that would help me recall what was. Think of what could have been. Instead, I was forced to watch what is in another gray landscape. The sky's tears battled with the leaves. The branches swung at one another. Fierce battles ensued. The road continued straight up to a fountain, where it diverged and transformed into a circle, and restoring itself back into a straight line, it continued. I sat near the formation, for the trees obeyed the road, and the sky, with its gray clouds, remained visible, and the battles fought turned into echoes from afar. The rain poured, thickening the layering clog on my glasses, changing it with another, never letting them rest. Down it poured. My cigarette had long been extinguished, yet the respite it brought remained all the same. And so, I kept sucking on the wet cotton. Lost, I dabbled with questions I knew I shouldn't ask. A man's worst enemy was his own mind. I had hoped for the rain to wash away the colors of my brain too. But they remained, blinking ever so often, showing me what was. My clothes heavy, burdened with the rain, pulled me down on the bench. My hair, too, wet, as if splashed on my scalp. I bit the butt with my teeth and looked above, to the soaring skies. My eyes were protected, so I didn't flinch. Instead, I enjoyed the moment of rain, enjoyed the moment of solitude, the moment of respite. The rivers ran, the fountain spat, and the clouds rumbled. I remained. For how long could I remain? For how long would I? My legs pulled in pain, and noise had settled at the bottom of my feet, a numbing pump. My head ached. I pulled on my dimmed cigarette. In this park, I had hoped to encounter a spark of life. The leaves were falling, the branches were breaking from the wind, and my ankles drowned beneath the rivers. The pouring rain consumed. Hungry, it ate everything. But the pain, my teeth failed to cling on. My mouth gapped. I dropped my companion. It soaked, increased in weight, and sank. What was another lost cigarette in the rinsing sea? So today's story has come to an end. Or perhaps it never really ended. There are mysteries still there, questions still unanswered, and sometimes things that seem to only exist in stories can creep into reality in unexpected ways. Are you sure that when you turn off the sound, everything around you will still be normal as before? Or is there something watching you? Either way, always remember that these are just stories, or at least we want to believe that they are. If you like moments of suspense, tension, and breathlessness, don't forget to follow me so you don't miss the next stories. And next time, when you come back, make sure you are ready, because what awaits you may be even scarier than you thought. See you again if you still have the courage to continue listening.